Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Biz English channel. We are incredibly excited to have you here today.
Yeah, thanks for tuning in. It's going to be a really good discussion today.
It really is. And, before we jump into things, do me a huge favor. Hit that subscribe button right now, drop a like on the video, and get ready to share your opinions in the comments section below. We read all of them.
Absolutely. We love seeing your comments.
So, to get us started, I want you to think about a simple physical action, like turning a dial on a machine or, rotating a wheel.
Right, just a basic mechanical motion.
Exactly. It's just mechanics. But the second you attach a tiny two-letter preposition to that verb, like the word on, you don't just change the action anymore.
You conjure up a whole new reality.
Yes, you conjure the entire concept of electricity. You turn on the light, you turn off the computer. It is, frankly, absolutely fascinating how English takes these profound, invisible forces and it maps them onto basic physical space.
It really is a perfect focal point for our exploration today. Because, we often think of corporate language as this highly abstract, almost sterile form of communication.
Oh, for sure. Lots of jargon.
Exactly. We talk about synergies and bandwidth and optimization. But underneath all of that corporate jargon, the actual engine of English communication relies so heavily on these cognitive metaphors.
Like using physical space to describe things we can't touch.
Precisely. We look forward to the future, right?
Yeah.
Or we put a difficult quarter behind us.
Yeah.
And nowhere is this physical mapping more strategically utilized than with spatial prepositions.
Which brings us to our mission for today. We are focusing entirely on the verb drop.
A word that inherently implies gravity.
Right. Gravity, a lack of resistance, a downward trajectory, like dropping your phone.
Yeah.
But we're going to dissect how simply taking that verb and attaching words like off, by, in, or out completely alters the power dynamics in a professional setting.
It changes accountability entirely. It reframes the psychological reality of the office.
Yeah, this isn't just about passing a grammar test.
Not at all. It is a matter of strategic framing. When executives or HR professionals use these specific combinations of what we call phrasal verbs in linguistics, they're often doing it to subtly manipulate how a situation is perceived by the listener.
Okay, let's jump right into the first variation because it perfectly illustrates this manipulation. I like to call this the passive shield, and the phrase is drop off.
Ah, yes. Specifically when used in the context of numbers or metrics going down.
Right. So break that down for us. What's happening linguistically there?
Well, when we talk about data, say, sales volume or website traffic using drop-off to describe a decline is a highly specific, very deliberate linguistic choice.
So?
It functions like an unaccusative verb, which basically means it describes something that happens to a subject without any active agent causing it.
Like it just happened on its own.
Exactly. It implies a natural, gravity-driven phenomenon. It entirely removes human agency from the equation.
Okay, so let me put that in a real-world scenario to make sure I'm following. Let's say I'm a CEO, I'm on a quarterly earnings call.
Okay, setting the stage.
And let's say my leadership team made a really terrible decision last month to slash the marketing budget. And as a direct result, our user acquisition numbers just plummeted.
Right, a disaster you caused.
Yeah. So it would be pretty disingenuous for me to get on the call and say, well, user acquisition dropped off.
Technically, yes, it would be disingenuous.
Right.
Because you forced that decrease. You cut the budget.
I see.
The true definition of drop-off in this context is strictly reserved for an organic, unforced decline.
But executives use it anyway, don't they?
All the time. They use it to shield themselves from blame. By saying, consumer interest dropped off in the third quarter, the executive frames the financial loss as an act of nature.
It's like the corporate equivalent of saying it rained.
Yes. You cannot blame the CEO for the weather.
That is such a brilliant way to look at it. It's weather terminology. Like if I hit the brakes in my car, I can't say the speed of my car dropped off, right? Because I forced the friction.
Exactly. You actively stop the car.
But if I take my foot off the gas and I just coast up a steep hill, the speed naturally drops off.
That's the perfect analogy. So by using this phrase in a boardroom, a manager is essentially telling the board, hey, we were just coasting and gravity took over, the market shifted, don't look at me.
I didn't drop the ball just dropped.
Precisely. It allows you to communicate negative news without accepting any culpability. Contrast that with active phrasing like, we lost 10,000 users.
Whew, yeah, that sounds bad. That sounds like someone needs to be fired.
Exactly. Or, we failed to maintain our user base. Those phrases imply a subject who messed up, but the users dropped off implies they just fell off the edge of their own accord.
Wow. Okay, so we've established that drop-off when talking about metrics acts as a shield against accountability. But here is where the mechanics of English get incredibly weird.
Oh, this is the fun part.
Right. If we take that exact same phrase, drop off, and we introduce a physical object into the sentence, the meaning does a complete 180-degree flip.
It really does. We go from a passive, unforced decline to an active, physical delivery.
Yes. You are suddenly delivering something.
The introduction of a tangible object completely overwrites the falling metaphor. We aren't talking about data falling anymore. We are talking about the physical act of transporting an item to a destination and leaving it there.
Like, I will drop off the contract at your office.
Exactly. Or could you drop off these product samples with the client?
And suddenly, the agency is entirely back on the speaker. I am the delivery mechanism. But what I find so fascinating here isn't just the change in meaning, it's the cognitive mechanics of how we structure these sentences.
The grammar rules behind it.
Right, because as a native speaker, I intuitively know that the object can go in two different places.
Let's hear an example.
Okay, so I can say, I will drop off the package, or I can split the phrase and say, I will drop the package off. Both feel totally normal to me.
And they are. Both are grammatically sound. English, with its deep Germanic roots, loves stringing verbs and particles together. And it allows for this flexibility when you're dealing with full nouns.
Like the package.
Right. However, there is a very rigid structural boundary that kicks in when you replace that noun with a pronoun.
Words like it, him, or them.
Exactly.
Yeah, the infamous pronoun rule. So if I swap the package for it, I'm forced to put the pronoun right in the middle. I have to say drop it off.
You do.
If I say drop off it, my brain just immediately rejects it. It sounds entirely wrong, almost abrasive to the ear.
It sounds completely unnatural to a native speaker.
But my question is, why? Is this just some arbitrary rule that a grammarian invented centuries ago to torture people trying to learn English, or is there a functional reason?
It is entirely functional, and it comes down to a concept in linguistics known as the end-weight principle.
End-weight principle, okay.
Yeah. Yes. The human brain, when it's processing spoken language, heavily prefers to encounter new, complex, or heavy information at the end of a sentence.
Why at the end?
It helps manage cognitive load. It's easier to digest.
Okay, let's unpack that a bit. What exactly makes a word heavy versus light?
Well, a full noun phrase, like the revised marketing contract, is cognitively heavy. It contains new, very specific information.
Right, I have to picture the contract, remember what it's for.
Exactly. So the brain is perfectly happy placing it at the end of the sentence. I will drop off the revised marketing contract. It gives the listener time to process the action of dropping off before hitting them with this complex object.
Oh, I see.
But a pronoun like it is incredibly light. By definition, a pronoun refers to something that has already been established in the conversation. It's old news.
Okay, so if I leave this tiny, lightweight, already known piece of information just dangling at the very end of the sentence like, I will drop off it, it violates the brain's expectation.
Exactly. The brain wants to tuck that lightweight, known information away as quickly as possible so it can move on to new things.
Wow.
So it sandwiches the pronoun between the verb and the preposition. Drop it off.
Yeah.
It is an ergonomic design for human conversation.
Ergonomic design. I love that phrase.
It's not an arbitrary rule at all. It's literally an optimization of cognitive bandwidth.
That is a phenomenal insight. It transforms what feels like just, a tedious grammar rule into an elegant piece of neurological engineering. And honestly, this is exactly why we do these shows. You realize the language is working with your brain, not against it.
Absolutely. And that cognitive optimization becomes even more important when we shift from moving inanimate objects like contracts to moving human bodies through corporate spaces.
Oh, that is a perfect transition. Before we get to moving human bodies, though, I want to pause for just a second. I want to hear from you, the listener, right now.
Yes, let's get some examples.
Think about your work week. What is the last physical item you had to literally drop off at an office or for a client? Was it a file? A coffee? Someone's forgotten laptop? I want you to pause the video right now, go down to the comment section, and tell us using the phrase.
Then make sure to practice that pronoun rule if you use it.
Yes, I dropped it off. And hey, while you're scrolling down there to type your comment, just double check that you've clicked subscribe so you don't miss our future discussions. Okay, let's get back to it. Moving human bodies.
Right.
So I've dropped off the package, the delivery is complete, but what if the object I am moving is myself? What if my goal is to initiate a human interaction? This brings us to the phrases drop by and drop in.
This is where we enter what I like to call the geography of soft power.
Soft power. Okay, explain that.
Well, both of these phrases are used to describe an informal, unscheduled visit. You aren't sending out a calendar invite. You aren't booking a conference room for a set time. You are simply arriving.
But I want to challenge this idea of informality. We call it casual, right? But in a corporate environment, is an unscheduled visit ever truly casual?
It's a great question.
Think about the open plan office. If a senior executive walks across the floor and just drops by a junior analyst's desk, there is nothing casual about that from the analyst's perspective.
No, usually it induces panic.
Exactly. It feels like an assertion of spatial dominance.
You are hitting on a very real sociological dynamic here. The act of dropping by bypasses the formal equalizing instructions of the office.
Right, because meetings are equalizing.
Exactly. When you schedule a meeting, both parties agree to a time. There's mutual consent. But when someone drops by, they are claiming immediate attention. They are leveraging their physical proximity to override your current workflow.
It's often framed as friendly, though, like, oh, I'm just dropping by to see how the project is going.
Yes, but it implicitly requires the visitor to have the social or hierarchical capital to interrupt you in the first place.
It is the ultimate soft power move. You know, it's funny. It's exactly why managers actually lamented the loss of the drop-by culture during the shift to remote work a few years ago.
Well, absolutely. They hated losing it.
Because you can't casually drop by a Zoom room. You have to send a Slack message, ask for a link, find a time on the calendar. The friction of remote work completely neutralized that specific exertion of spatial dominance.
Yeah, it is a brilliant observation. The physical geography was removed, and thus the phrase lost its utility. But assuming we are in a physical space, English draws a very distinct, almost hyper-specific geographic line between how we use drop by and drop in.
Right, because they aren't exactly the same. So what is the dividing line between the two?
It depends entirely on how you treat the physical boundary of the location in your sentence.
Okay.
If you explicitly name the location the specific destination you are visiting, you use drop by.
Got an example?
Sure, I have some free time this afternoon, so I might drop by the Seattle office. You explicitly name the office, so you use by.
Okay, drop by the office. So what triggers drop in?
You use drop in when you do not explicitly attach the geographic noun to the verb phrase. The location is just implied by the context. For instance, you might say to a colleague who travels frequently, hey, please drop in anytime you're in the city. You didn't say drop in the office. You just said drop in.
Please drop in. This feels like a very subtle distinction. Drop by the office versus dropped in. Why does the language make this distinction at all? Like, what is the actual difference between by and in from a spatial perspective?
It comes down to trajectory versus containment.
Trajectory versus containment. Okay, walk me through that.
The preposition by implies proximity along a trajectory. If I say I'm going to drop by, it subtly implies that I was already moving in that direction anyway.
Ah, like I'm passing by your location on my way to somewhere else.
Exactly. It softens the visit, making it feel a little less demanding. It says, I'm not making a special trip just for you. You are simply on my route.
Oh, wow. That is incredibly strategic. It lowers the stakes of the visit.
It does. Conversely, the preposition in implies penetration of a boundary or containment. When you say, please drop in, you are focusing on the act of crossing the threshold into the space. You are inviting them to enter the container of your environment.
Trajectory versus containment. So drop by is like a passing orbit and drop in is an actual landing.
That's a great way to visualize it.
This proves the thesis perfectly. We aren't just picking prepositions randomly because they sound good. We are unconsciously painting a three-dimensional map of our intentions for the listener.
We really are. And that spatial reasoning holds true, even when we're talking about completely abstract corporate structures. Which brings us to our final preposition for the verb drop. dropout.
Ooh, dropout. Now, this phrase carries a tremendous amount of cultural baggage.
It does.
When I hear dropout, my mind immediately goes to the 1960s counterculture, turn on, tune in, drop out.
Oh.
Or I picture a miserable college student packing up their dorm room halfway through a semester. It implies a failure to maintain altitude.
It carries a heady stigma. And that stigma is intrinsically tied to the spatial metaphor of dropping. In Western culture, we conceptualize success as a vertical climb.
Right. We talk about the corporate ladder.
Exactly. Climbing the ranks, upper management. Up is always good, down is always bad. Therefore, if you exit a structured progression, you don't just leave it, you drop out. You fall from the structure.
But how does this manifest in modern corporate environments? Because, most professionals listening to this channel aren't dropping out of college anymore.
It manifests heavily in human resources, professional development, and sales pipelines.
Really?
Oh, absolutely. It is the standard terminology for exiting any formalized progression before completion. Think about candidate attrition during a really rigorous hiring process.
Okay, so like a multi-round interview.
Right. If a company starts with 50 applicants, and after 3 rounds of interviews, 5 candidates withdraw because they simply don't want the job anymore, HR will report to management that those 5 candidates dropped out of the process.
Let me push back on that framing, though, because if a candidate realizes a company has a toxic culture, right, or if they receive a wildly better offer from a competitor and they choose to withdraw, they didn't fail.
No, they didn't.
They won elsewhere. They made a proactive, upwardly mobile decision for themselves. Yet the company's HR department describes them as having dropped out.
That is the institutional ego at work.
Exactly. The institution preserves its own status by using a phrase that subtly shifts the failure onto the individual. Oh, they didn't reject us, they simply dropped out. They lacked the stamina or the gravity to stay on our ladder. It is an incredibly defensive use of language.
It is institutional framing at its absolute finest. And you see the exact same psychological mechanism in digital marketing and e-commerce.
Oh, with shopping carts.
Yes. When a consumer puts items in a digital shopping cart, but then closes the browser before paying, marketers don't say, the customer rejected our pricing.
What do they say?
They say the user dropped out of the sales funnel.
Dropped out of the funnel. Oh my gosh, the metaphor is literally a physical cone where gravity is supposed to pull the consumer down to the point of purchase.
Exactly.
If they don't buy, they somehow defied the gravity of the funnel. They fell out of it.
Precisely. Whether it's a hiring pipeline, an MBA program, or a sales funnel, the institution relies on the spatial metaphor of dropping out to maintain its position of authority. Quitting is an active, rebellious choice. Dropping out implies passive failure.
This is staggering. I mean, we have covered a massive spectrum here. We started with drop-off as this passive shield for executives dodging blame for falling metrics. We moved to drop-off with an object, exploring how the brain's N-weight principle demands the pronoun sandwich to save cognitive bandwidth.
Right.
We explored the geography of soft power with the trajectory of drop-by versus the containment of drop-in. And finally, we uncovered the institutional ego behind drop-out.
It's a lot to take in. But the true test of fluency, the moment you move from just understanding these concepts to wielding them effectively, is recognizing how rapidly they can be stacked in a real high-stakes negotiation.
Or even just a fast-paced corporate interaction.
Exactly.
Let's visualize that synthesis. Let's imagine a scenario where 2 colleagues are having a seemingly mundane conversation in a hallway, but underneath, they're navigating all of these spatial dynamics. Let's use Tom and Sanja.
Okay, Tom and Sanja.
Let's say Sanja from marketing sees Tom from legal grabbing his coat. Sanja knows Tom is headed downtown to the executive suite. She wants to exploit his trajectory.
So she initiates an interaction.
Right. She asks, hey, Tom, where are you headed? And Tom says, I'm going to drop by the lawyer's office.
Notice his choice there. He uses drop by and explicitly names the location.
The lawyer's office.
Right. He is signaling his trajectory, but he is also subtly signaling his access. He doesn't need a strict appointment with the lawyers. He has the hierarchical capital to simply execute an informal visit.
Exactly. And Sanja immediately capitalizes on this. She needs the lawyer's signature on a contract, but she doesn't have the capital to drop by herself. So she leverages Tom's access. She hands him her folder and says, since you are heading there, could you take this file?
And in a fraction of a second, the spatial dynamics completely shift. Tom is no longer just moving himself. He has been burdened with an object.
Tom accepts the burden, though. He says, sure, I'll drop it off with the receptionist.
A flawless execution of the end-weight principle.
Right. Drop it off.
He tucks the lightweight pronoun it safely in the middle of the phrase. But notice what else he did. By saying he will drop it off with the receptionist, he protects his own drop-by interaction with the lawyer.
Oh, wow. I didn't even catch that.
Yeah. He will deposit Sanj's heavy object at the threshold, allowing him to maintain his unburdened informal visit with the actual executive.
That is conversational chess. In literally 3 sentences, they navigated spatial dominance, cognitive load, and hierarchical access, all by pivoting around the verb drop and a few tiny prepositions.
And that brings us back to the overarching thesis of our exploration today. When you are operating in a professional environment, it is incredibly easy to get lost in the illusion that business English is this sophisticated, abstract construct made entirely of spreadsheets and KPIs.
But the reality is far more primal.
It is. At our core, we are still physical beings navigating physical space. The language we use to wield power, to evade accountability, and to establish dominance is entirely built on simulations of gravity, friction, trajectory, and collision.
That makes perfect sense.
When a metric decreases naturally, it falls. When we interrupt a colleague, we collide with their space. When someone abandons a process, they plummet from the structure.
We are essentially speaking in physical physics. The gravity of the word drop stays exactly the same. The suddenness, the lack of resistance, the downward motion, even when the context shifts from a falling phone to a collapsing sales funnel.
And when you realize that, you aren't just memorizing vocabulary anymore. You are reading the spatial matrix of the conversation.
The spatial matrix?
Yes. You begin to hear not just what your colleagues are saying, but how they are attempting to physically position you within their reality.
That is an incredibly powerful note to end on. You are reading the spatial matrix of the conversation. I mean, it completely changes how you listen to your next boardroom presentation or hallway chat. Thank you so much for helping us unpack the hidden architecture of these phrases today. It has been a truly mind-bending discussion.
It's been an absolute pleasure to map it out with you.
And to you, the listener, thank you for joining us today. Before we go, a quick reminder to please subscribe to the Biz English channel so you never miss an update, and keep the conversation going in the comments section. The next time you hear an executive claim that revenue merely dropped off, or a manager says they're just going to drop by your desk, you will know exactly the kind of physics they're trying to play with. Keep analyzing the space around you, keep questioning the framing, and as always, happy learning.